Hey, it's the Fields Bros here. Let's jump right into Attack on Titan episode 30. So let's address everything that's important here. Last week, Ymir dove off the tower turning into a Titan. But she had a conversation with Krista right before she dove off. And she said something about a promise they had made at the top of a snowy mountain. So let's figure out exactly what they meant by that. So this episode starts off with a flashback scene going back to the first season. Now, what the issue here is that they're doing a winter training exercise, and all the groups have to make their way from the top of the mountain all the way to the base, returning to the camp. So all the cadets are doing this exercise that you know. So every group has made it back except for Krista and Ymir's group, which also has a third member named Diaz. Now, from what I understand, this is not a required exercise. Ymir was saying that Diaz shouldn't have even come along for this bonus exercise to try to earn points. Basically, to be in the MPs, you have to be top 10, so everybody is scored. All the cadets are going to be scored on all the various exercises that they do. So it would seem this winter training exercise is an optional thing. Nonetheless, Diaz gets himself fucked up, and he's unable to, get himself back home. So Krista is trying to drag this guy, a grown man, and she's, 90 pounds, like 4'10", at best. So Ymir is basically saying that, given the weather conditions, the speed that they're going at, all three of them are going to freeze to death if they keep carrying on like this. So basically, Ymir's basically saying we should just not kill, but leave Diaz here so he just dies anyways. Or we could dump him off this cliff here, which will either A, result in his death, or B, somebody will find him down there in, critical condition. Which obviously makes Krista object to, Ymir's reasoning, and Krista's pretty adamant and wanting to do, what she's, trying to do here. Drag him all the way back if need be, which is miles out in a blizzard. So Ymir is able to see that Krista is going to get herself killed doing this. So she shoves Krista out of sight down this little hill. Then there's a flash of light, and then a moment later, Ymir and Diaz are gone. There's just Krista. She runs back up to this the top of the hill by this large cliff, incredibly steep cliff, and she can't see Ymir or Diaz anywhere. So they just basically went poof and vanished into thin air. Now, back at the camp, they're considering sending out a search party. So they're gathering some food supplies and everything that you're going to need. And it's at that point when somebody sees a person making their way down from the summit of the mountain, and it's Krista. And right ahead of her, just sitting there waiting ahead, is Ymir. She had actually gotten back ahead of Krista, gotten Diaz inside to get the treatment that he needed. And Krista's pretty confused because, she's one person, so she's going to be able to get herself back a lot quicker than Ymir should be able to carrying an injured person, right? That's only logical. And then she starts to think about the height of the mountain they were on, the fact that, Ymir didn't have any tools, all the obvious things. And as she's coming to a conclusion, Ymir kind of cuts her off and says that she'll let her in on her secret one day, which is the fact that she's a Titan. She turned into a Titan in order to scale this cliff. So she didn't flat out say it, but she basically heavily implied it to Krista and said that one day she will reveal this secret to her. That's the promise that they made at the snowy mountain. That's the most important thing that happened at the mountain. The second most important thing would be, as they were arguing, they had another little conversation with Ymir basically saying that, basically answering the question of why she always hangs around Krista. It's not just to protect her, I guess. Apparently, similar to, or going along with what the pastor told us about Krista being a person of importance, apparently Ymir overheard a conversation on her own about Krista and how she's from a noble family that had too many heirs to the throne. So they stripped this girl of her name and dumped her in the Cadets to live as a commoner, basically, in a new life. Which tells me that maybe it's not an issue of just Krista, but it's more of an issue of her family. So Krista's family, who are they, is the question now. Well, yeah, with the flashback finally over, we jump to the real time here, where Ymir's, in midair, diving off the tower. So she completes her transformation. She begins to attack the Titans by biting their napes, latching onto the tower for, just to gain some distance momentarily between the Titans, then jumping back off, attacking a couple more, and repeating this process. But she's also trying not to rip down the tower as well, because there's people atop. And it's basically at that point when Krista starts screaming at Ymir, saying that Ymir should just be saving herself, not risking her life to protect everybody on this tower, and how the actions that Ymir is taking is basically backwards for her character. She's more of a selfish character. It doesn't really stick her neck out for anybody, but it's pretty clear that Ymir is doing what she's doing in order to protect Krista. So Ymir, hearing this, begins to actually rip down the tower by, grabbing pieces, smashing them at the Titans. And Ymir makes her way to the top, tells everybody to grab onto her hair, all the people at the top, all the cadets. And they all grab onto her hair, and she collapses the tower on all these Titans. But shortly after, Titans just pop out of the rubble, and they surround Ymir, and it looks like they're going to kill Ymir. Then Krista charges the battlefield, blindly, and a Titan tries to grab Krista as Krista is saying something about how her real name isn't actually Krista, and that Ymir needs to know what that is. And as all that's happening, Mikasa pops out of the sky and kills the Titan that's about to kill Krista. So finally, all the reinforcements have made it to the castle here. So you have Mikasa, Armin, Hange. I believe I saw Eren out there as well getting an ODM kill. So that's number one for him in the books. But with the assistance of the reinforcements, they're able to kill all the Titans that are at the castle. So it looks like Ymir is going to survive along with everybody else at this castle. So at this point, we need to talk to Ymir, but she seems to be in pretty bad shape. She's missing a leg, part of her abdomen, and her left arm. So Hange is definitely going to have some interrogative questions for her. But Krista actually says to Ymir that her real name is Historia. And, the episode title is Historia. So we get something here. We get Krista's real name. So yeah, the plot has thickened, as they say. We're almost at the halfway point of season 2 of Attack on Titan. So thanks for listening to the review. Be sure to check it out every week. Take it easy, guys.